I'm going to rank the World Series of the 1960s, just as I've done with the 70s through the 2010s. Enough people watched the 70s one that I'm going to go even further back in time here. I guess as long as folks keep watching, I'll keep doing these. Let's see if we can make it to the deadball era. I'm ranking these series based on their dramatic value. So I'm taking into account number of games, closeness of individual games, as well as narrative value. Number 10, 1966. We'll start with a real low-scoring affair with the 1966 World Series. The Orioles jumped out to a 3-0 lead in the first inning of Game 1 with back-to-back dingers by Frank and Brooks Robinson. And with that, they outscored the Dodgers for the entire series. That said, the sweep was not without its share of drama. The Dodgers got back into Game 1 after starter Dave McNally got wild in the third and walked the bases loaded. But Mo Drabowski came in and got out of it, allowing just one run and closing the game out with 6 2/3 of one-hit relief. And with that 5-2 defeat, the Dodgers decided to just stop scoring. But the Orioles didn't bother to score much either, winning both games 3 and 4, 1-0. I mean, they were facing Drysdale and Koufax in 3 of the 4 games, so it's understandable. Although they did blow out Koufax in Game 2, 6-0. But Koufax actually pitched pretty well in that game, giving up just 1 earned, but getting hosed by one of the worst defensive innings a player could possibly have. With 1 out and a runner on first, Paul Blair flies to center, but Willie Davis loses it in the sun and it drops to put runners at second and third. Next batter, Andy Etchebarren, pops to shallow center, and again, Davis loses it in the sun, or maybe just flat out muffs it. Then tries to throw out Blair heading to third, but airmails it for his 3rd error in 2 plays. 3 unearned runs. And the only earned run against Koufax comes from another outfield misplay when Davis and right fielder Ron Fairley both back off of a catchable fly ball by Frank Robinson, turning an out into a triple. Robinson would then score on a 1-out single. None of that really mattered though, as the Dodgers didn't score a single run in this game or the next 2. The clinching Game 4 nail-biter provided a lot of drama though, with Willie Davis somewhat redeeming himself for Game 2 by making this amazing catch to rob a home run from Boog Powell in the 4th and keep it a 1-0 game. But the play of the game came in the top of the 8th after O's manager Hank Bauer made a defensive switch, subbing Paul Blair in center for Russ Snyder. Jim Lefevre led off with a blast to center, and Blair did this. The Dodgers would get a couple of base runners on in the 9th, but McNally would shut it down, clinching the first championship for Baltimore and also the first in franchise history, as the St. Louis Browns never won a championship. Number 9, 1963. Another sweep and another great performance by Dodgers pitchers, but this time leading to a Dodgers victory. 2 complete games from Koufax, 1 from Drysdale, and 8 1/3 innings from Johnny Padres. The Yankees scored only 4 runs in the series, but the last 2 games were once again very tight. The Dodgers won Game 3 1-0 behind a 3-hitter by Drysdale, with Ron Fairley squeezing the final out against the right field fence. Game 4 saw solo homers by Frank Howard and Mickey Mantle before the Dodgers took a 2-1 lead on a Joe Pepitone error at first, allowing Jim Gilliam to reach third base to lead off the 7th. He scored on a Willie Davis sac fly, and then Sandy Koufax shut it down from there. Number 8, 1961. A 5-gamer that's fairly lopsided towards the 109-win Yankees against the 93-win Reds, who actually outplayed their Pythagorean record by 10 games. But the Yankees had significant injuries, with Yogi Berra sitting out 1 game with shoulder stiffness and Mickey Mantle only getting 6 at-bats in the series as he was suffering from a hip abscess. It wouldn't matter though, as they'd get 14 scoreless innings from Whitey Ford in this series. The highlight and turning point came in Game 3, with the series knotted up 1-1. The Reds took a 1-run lead into the 7th when a hit and a pass ball put Tony Kubek at second. Yogi Berra hit a fly ball to shallow right, and Ilio Chacon and Frank Robinson collided, allowing the tying run to score. But the Reds would go back up 2-1 in the bottom half of the inning. Then the Yankees would tie it on a Johnny Blanchard homer in the 8th, and then take the lead with a Roger Maris solo shot in the 9th. The Reds would strand the tying run at second in the bottom half of the inning. The Yankees' slumping offense woke up after that and scored 20 runs over the next 2 games to seal it. Number 7, 1965. We get our first 7-gamer here, but it's one of those rare, boring 7-gamers. There are no 1-run games here and only 1 2-run game. The Twins went up 2-0 in the series with an 8-2 win, followed by a 5-1 win. Twins must have felt pretty good to be up 2-0, having beaten Drysdale and Koufax. But the series would shift to Dodger Stadium, and LA would sweep the 3 games there, with a Claude Osteen shutout followed by dominating Drysdale and Koufax complete games. Then it shifted back to Minneapolis, and it looked like it might be a series where the home team can't lose. Mudcat Grant would shut down the Dodgers to win 5-1 in Game 6. The one tight game would come in Game 7, with Koufax facing off against Jim Cott for the 3rd time. Koufax, who had thrown 335 regular season innings with an arthritic elbow, would throw a complete game on 2 days' rest. He gave up 3 hits and struck out 10 to clinch it for the Dodgers, winning his 2nd World Series MVP of the decade. Number 6, 1968. A very similar type of series as 65, with a 7-gamer without any terribly dramatic individual games. And in the year of the pitcher, it was fitting that it was 2 pitchers that dominated this series. Bob Gibson, the NL Cy Young winner, and Mickey Lolich, the Tigers' number 2 starter after AL Cy Young winner Denny McLain, each threw 3 complete games in this series, with Lolich coming out on top in all 3 of his, including the decisive head-to-head battle with Gibson in Game 7. Weirdly, there was quite a bit of scoring against the rest of the pitchers in this series, with some seriously lopsided blowouts in 4 of the games. The dramatic high point of the series was Game 5, with the Tigers' backs against the wall, trailing 3-1 in the series. Lolich gave up 3 runs in the first, with Orlando Cepeda hitting a 2-run bomb. Lolich laid some of the blame for his poor start at the feet of Jose Feliciano, whose 2-minute version of the Star-Spangled Banner caused him to have to re-warm up. It was far from the only gripe about Feliciano's untraditional performance, as many fans complained, calling his rendition an unpatriotic disgrace and leading radio stations to stop playing Feliciano's music, which is pretty crazy as this version of the anthem is absolutely goated. But after the rough first, Lolich shut down the Cardinals and the Tigers managed to claw back. In the 4th, the Tigers got 2 triples and a bad hop that tied up Julian Javier at second and pulled them within 1 run. They'd keep it a 1-run game in the 5th with an amazing throw from Willie Horton to peg Lou Brock at the plate. Then the Tigers pulled ahead in the 7th with a 2-run single by Al Kaline and a 1-run single by Norm Cash. The Cardinals would put 2 on in the 9th, but Lolich would shut it down. After a Tigers blowout in Game 6, Lolich came back on 2 days' rest against Gibson on 3 days' rest. It was a scoreless duel until the top of the 7th. The Cardinals had blown a great opportunity in the bottom of the 6th, with both Lou Brock and Curt Flood getting picked off first base by Lolich. Flood's day would get even worse when he would misplay a fly ball to center field and turn a possible out into a 2-run triple, which was all Lolich and the Tigers would need to seal the first Detroit championship since 1945. Number 5, 1969. I'm going with the underdog here, taking a 5-game series ahead of a couple of 7-gamers. But this was one of the bigger World Series upsets and the first Mets appearance in a World Series, coming just 7 years after their record-breaking 120-loss debut season.
Amazing! Amazing!
Amazing! Amazing! Asombrosos!
The 69 Orioles were an incredible team. 109 wins, and they actually underperformed based on their run differential. The Mets were a 100-win team themselves, but had actually overperformed based on their run differential. And things seemed like they would go as expected when Mike Cuellar would best Tom Seaver in Game 1. But the Mets came back in Game 2 with an excellent outing by Jerry Koosman against Dave McNally. The Mets got on the board first with a Don Clendenin solo shot. After the Orioles tied it up in the 7th, the Mets got back-to-back-to-back 2-out singles by Ed Charles, Jerry Grody, and Al Weiss to plate the go-ahead run. The Orioles would put 2 on in their half, but Ron Taylor would save it for the Mets. Gary Gentry and Nolan Ryan combined for a shutout in Game 3, winning 5-0. But this game was a lot closer than it looks. The Orioles had 2 separate bases-loaded opportunities and were foiled both times by amazing catches in center field by Tommy Agee. Then Game 4 was a classic. This was a Seaver-Cuellar rematch with Don Clendenin once again putting the Mets on the board first with a solo shot. Seaver was lights out, shutting out the Orioles through 8, but with 1 out in the 9th, Frank Robinson and Boog Powell hit back-to-back singles to put runners at the corners. Then Brooks Robinson hits a fly ball into right center, and Ron Swoboda makes this incredible catch for the second out. But Frank Robinson is able to tag and score to tie it up. Seaver would stay in for the 10th and pitch around an error and a single. and in the bottom half of the 10th, it was the Grote and Weiss show again. Grote doubled, and Weiss was walked intentionally to bring up Tom Seaver. The Mets would bring J.C. Martin in to pinch hit and lay down a sac bunt. Orioles reliever Pete Reichert, who had just entered the game, fielded the bunt, and his throw to first caromed off of Martin's wrist, allowing the Mets to walk it off. The Orioles would argue that Martin was running out of the baseline, to no avail. In Game 5, the Orioles' flagging offense would get a jolt in the third inning by pitcher Dave McNally, who would smoke a two-run dinger. This seemed to snap the Orioles out of it, as 2 batters later, Frank Robinson would launch a solo shot. But that was all the offense they'd muster against Jerry Koosman. The Mets would pull within 1 in the 6th on a 2-run shot by Clendenin after 2 controversial hit-by-pitch calls. In the top half, Frank Robinson was hit by this pitch, but the ump said it hit off of his bat. He would later strike out, and the Orioles would strand a runner. Then in the bottom half, McNally threw a pitch in the dirt that looked like it may have hit leadoff batter Cleon Jones in the foot before bouncing into the Mets dugout.
Oh, he hit him! How wonderful! Amazing! It's amazing!
Gil Hodges brought the ball out to the umpire, pointing to a spot of black shoe polish on the ball. The ump then awarded Jones first base. There are a couple of legendary stories of questionable authenticity surrounding this play. Jerry Koosman later claimed that Hodges told him to scuff the ball up on his shoe as soon as it came into the dugout. And Ron Swoboda said that the ball hit a bag of batting practice balls, which tumbled out onto the dugout floor, with Hodges looking for the most scuffed up one. Then in the 7th, the Mets would tie it up on a very unexpected solo shot by Al Weiss. Weiss was a light-hitting infielder who only hit 7 home runs in his 10-year MLB career. Weiss was a career .219 hitter who had 2 of the most impactful hits in this World Series. Weiss's homer in Game 5 and his go-ahead single in Game 2 were the top 2 plays in the series by win probability added. Ron Swoboda would put the Mets up for good with an RBI double in the bottom half of the 8th.
The Mets are the world champions.
Number 4, 1967. It's all 7 gamers from here on out. 67 saw the Cardinals and Red Sox square off in a back-and-forth series dominated by Bob Gibson, who won 3 games with 3 complete games. Gibby squared off in Game 1 against Jose Santiago, a swingman forced to start Game 1 because ace Jim Lonborg had pitched the season finale to put the Sox in the series. And Santiago went toe-to-toe with Gibson, pitching around a lot of trouble to take a 1-1 game into the 7th. And the only Sox run came courtesy of a solo homer by Santiago himself. But the Cards would manufacture a run in the 7th, and that was all Gibson needed. Lonborg then evened the series, tossing a 1-hitter in Game 2, but his brushback pitch of Lou Brock got the Cardinals riled up, and Nelson Briles came in hot in Game 3. The Choir Boy, as Briles was nicknamed, got his hands dirty right away, beaning Carl Yastrzemski in the leg in the first inning, and later threw a high, tight one to Reggie Smith. This bad blood would boil over in the 9th when Smith would pop up down the first baseline and would put his shoulder into Tim McCarver while running to first. The Cardinals won the game 5-2. The Cardinals would take a 3-1 lead with a Gibson shutout in Game 4, then Boston would win a 3-1 nail-biter behind Lonborg in Game 5, which was a 1-0 Red Sox game into the 9th before they tacked on 2 with a 2-run single by Elston Howard. Then the Sox evened the series with an 8-4 win that was tighter than the final score indicated. The Cardinals took a 2-1 lead into the 4th when the Sox hit 3 solo homers to make it 4-2. Then the Cards tied it on a 2-run Lou Brock homer in the top of the 7th, but the Red Sox would blow it open with 4 in the bottom half. But it was just delaying the inevitable, as it just meant that the Sox would have to face Gibson again in Game 7. They did have their ace Lonborg on the hill to counter, but it wasn't enough. Lonborg on 2 days rest wasn't the same, and the Cardinals jumped on him for 7 runs. Way more than necessary for Gibson to close out the series. Number 3, 1962. This back-and-forth series saw the teams trade victories and culminated in a classic pitcher's duel. After the Yankees won 6-2 in Game 1, the Giants tied it up with a shutout by Jack Sanford and a massive homer by Willie McCovey to win it 2-0. Game 3 was another tight game until the 7th when the Yankees put up 3 runs. The Giants pulled to within 1 with a 2-run dinger by Ed Bailey, but fell short. In Game 4, Don Larson got the victory in relief, 6 years to the day of his World Series perfect game. But he won this one for the Giants. The offense was led by Hiller and Haller, a 2-run homer by Tom Haller, and then a grand slam by Chuck Hiller. The Giants then took a 2-1 lead into the 8th inning in Game 5, but a 3-run bomb by Tom Tresh put the Yankees up, and they held on to take a 3-2 series back to San Francisco. The Giants would win 5-2 in Game 6 to even the series and set up the Game 7 nail-biter. You know it was an all-out pitcher's duel when the only run is scored on a double play ball. After 2 singles and a walk, Jack Sanford gave up the game's only tally when Tony Kubek hit into a 6-4-3 double play. Sanford and reliever Billy O'Dell pitched around a bases-loaded no-out jam in the 8th, getting a force at home on a Roger Maris grounder to second, and then getting Elson Howard on a 5-3 double play. The Giants had a couple of 2-out scoring opportunities, but couldn't capitalize on them. In the 7th, Willie McCovey hit a 2-out triple, but was stranded there. And in the 9th, after a Matty Alou bunt hit, Willie Mays hit a double down the right field line, but with Maris cutting it off, Alou had to hold at third. The Yankees and Ralph Terry chose to pitch to Willie McCovey versus walk him and get the righty-righty matchup against Orlando Cepeda. McCovey would get an excellent swing on the second pitch, but would line it right at Bobby Richardson to close out the series. Number 2, 1964. This Yankees-Cardinals classic kicked off with a wild Game 1. With the Yankees leading 4-2 in the 6th, the Cardinals would plate 4. The Yankees would then pull to within 1 in the 8th, but the Cards would pull away after a Clete Boyer error allowed the Cardinals to score 3 unearned runs in the 8th. Game 2 saw a rare Bob Gibson incomplete game. He may have lost his concentration in the 6th when a controversial call got him riled up. With the game tied at 1, an inside curveball to Joe Pepitone was ruled a hit by pitch, although the Cardinals thought the ball hit Pepitone's bat. I mean, even if it did hit him, it looks like he straight up swung at this pitch. Gibson would allow the go-ahead run to score right after this, then give up 2 more in the 7th. Meanwhile, Mel Stottlemyre held the Cardinals in check, and Gibson got pulled after 8, the only time he wouldn't complete a World Series start. He'd make up for it, though, by pitching a 10-inning complete game later in the series. But before we get to that, we've got a Game 3 classic. After the Yankees took a 1-0 early lead, the Cardinals tied it up in the 5th when Tim McCarver would hit a single to right that Mickey Mantle let get through his legs. He would later score an unearned run when Cardinals hurler Curt Simmons would hit a 2-out infield single off of Clete Boyer's glove. But Mickey Mantle would atone in a big way. Leading off the 9th, Mantle would go deep to win it, and to also break Babe Ruth's career World Series home run record. And Game 4 was another incredibly dramatic contest. The Yankees would tally 3 in the 1st and take that 3-0 lead into the 6th. But the Cardinals would load the bases on a couple of singles and a Bobby Richardson error. Then Ken Boyer would do this.
There's a drive way back. It might be. It could be. It is a home run. Kenny Boyer just became the 9th player to hit a grand slammer.
The Cardinals even the series at 2 apiece. Then in Game 5, we get that 10-inning affair I mentioned earlier. Gibson was on his A game in this one, striking out 13 and holding the Yankees scoreless into the 9th. Mel Stottlemyre was pretty sharp again for the Yankees, but got into trouble in the 5th, with Bobby Richardson again making a key error, leading to a 2-0 Cardinals lead. Gibson would have nailed down the 2-0 shutout if not for a Dick Groat error allowing Mickey Mantle to reach leading off the 9th. After he retired the next 2, Tom Tresh homered to tie it and send it into extras. But the Cardinals would come back right away in the top of the 10th with a 3-run Tim McCarver dinger. Gibby would then close it out in the bottom half. The Yankees then evened the series with a Game 6 blowout keyed by a 5-run 8th. Then both teams brought their Game 5 starters back for Game 7 on 2 days rest. Neither Stottlemyre nor Gibson were terribly sharp, but the Cardinals put up 6 runs through 5, and Gibson was able to drag himself across the finish line despite allowing 3 long balls, with a 7-5 win for the Redbirds. Gibson won the MVP, the first of his 2 World Series MVPs in the decade. In fact, Gibson's gotta be the World Series performer of the decade, throwing 81 innings in 9 starts with a 7-2 record, a 1.89 ERA, 92 strikeouts, 10.2 strikeouts per 9, and a 5.41 strikeout to walk ratio. Number 1, 1960. This is such a weird World Series, one where the winning team was outscored. The Yankees won their 3 games by scores of 16-3, 10-0, and 12-0. Pirates, meanwhile, won twice by 1 run, once by 2, and once by 3. This led to another anomaly, with Bobby Richardson winning the series MVP for the losing squad. But really, this series is all about the unbelievable Game 7, which elevates this from a good series to a legendary series. But there's plenty of intriguing stuff leading up to that. Game 1 got things off to a controversial start for the Yankees, with Casey Stengel opting to start Art Ditmar over Whitey Ford in Game 1. Ford had had a down year in 1960, but was still arguably the best starter on the team, despite dealing with shoulder problems throughout the season. But Ford had struggled down the stretch, while Ditmar had been solid. Doesn't seem like a terrible move, but many on the Yankees were pretty upset about the decision, including Mickey Mantle, who said he was still furious about it 34 years later. Ford had been an excellent postseason performer for the Yankees, and he would pitch lights out in his 2 starts in this series. But he could have started 3 times had they gone with him in Game 1. And Ditmar was terrible in this game, getting knocked out after giving up 3 runs in a third of an inning. The Pirates took a 3-1 lead into the 4th when the Yankees put runners on first and second with nobody out. Yogi Berra hit a ball into deep right center, and Bill Verdon and Roberto Clemente converged on it, looking like they were about to violently collide. But somehow they just seemed to gently touch, and Verdon makes the great catch. The Yankees would plate 1 after that, but this catch certainly saved a big inning that could have turned the game and the series. The next 2 games were full-on wallopings by the Yankees, with Bobby Richardson hitting a grand slam and a 2-run single to set the record for RBIs in a World Series game in Game 3. Game 4 was a nail-biter, with the Pirates putting up 3 runs in the 5th before the Yankees would pull to within 1 in the 7th. But ace reliever Roy Face would come in and set down 8 straight for the save. And Face would get another 8-out save the next day, this time allowing 1 base runner on a walk, as the Pirates would win 5-2 and take a 3-2 series lead. The Yankees would then bust out with a 12-0 win in Game 6 to set up the epic Game 7. This is a game of wild swings. There are 3 home runs in this game with win probability added swings of 30% or more, including the play with the biggest win probability added swing in World Series history. So the Pirates go up 4-0 after 2 in this one. After a solo homer by Bill Skowron in the 5th, the Yankees got a rally going in the 6th. After Bobby Richardson singled and Tony Kubek walked, Pirates manager Danny Murtaugh went to his fireman early, summoning Face. But Face wasn't up to the task this time. With 1 out, he gave up an RBI single to Mantle, followed by the first of those 3 massive homers, when Yogi Berra would launch a 3-run dinger to right to put the Yankees up 5-4. The Yankees had a 30% win expectancy before this homer, and a 64% win expectancy after it. The Yankees would add to their lead in the top of the 8th, plating 2 runs off of Face with hits by Johnny Blanchard and Clete Boyer. Then, in a move that looks pretty terrible in hindsight, Stengel chose to let Bobby Shantz hit with runners on second and third and 2 out. The Yankees had pulled starter Bob Turley after he allowed 2 in the first and then gave up a leadoff single in the second. They got an inning out of reliever Bill Stafford before going to Shantz in the third. Shantz was a former starter who had actually won the MVP with the Philadelphia A's early in his career, but had become an excellent swingman or longman for the Yankees in the late 50s. So they relied on Shantz to give them innings and keep them in this game, which he more than did. Shantz faced the minimum from the 3rd through the 7th. He gave up 2 base runners but erased both of them on double plays. I suppose it's understandable to think you'd want to ride his arm to the championship the way he was going. And with a 7-4 lead, you had to feel pretty good. Good enough to punt on a great scoring opportunity with Roy Face laboring. And the Yankees did have plenty of good bats available, with lefty Dale Long and righties Gil McDougald and Bob Cerv on the bench. But this move looks especially bad because Shantz fell apart immediately in the bottom of the 8th. But it wasn't entirely his fault. We can talk about homers by Mazeroski and Berra and Smith all day, but you can't discount the role of Forbes Field in this one. The infield at Forbes Field was notoriously hard, nicknamed the Alabaster Plaster by Pirates announcer Bob Prince. After a leadoff single in the 8th, Bill Verdon hit a hard grounder to short, and it looked like Shantz would get his 3rd double play, and the Yanks would be on their way. But the ball takes a crazy hop off of that hard infield and hits Tony Kubek in the larynx, knocking him out of the game and putting runners at first and second. This play is a 9% swing in win probability for the Pirates, but I'd argue it's even more significant since it very easily could have been 2 outs instead of a single. Dick Groat would then single in a run to make it 7-5 and chase Bobby Shantz from the game. With Jim Coates relieving, the Pirates sacrificed the 2 runners into scoring position, and then Rocky Nelson hit a fly ball to right that was too shallow to score Verdon. Roberto Clemente then hit a slow chopper to first, and Coates was slow to cover, with Clemente beating it out to score Verdon and make it 7-6. The Pirates had already resuscitated their win expectancy, going from 8% when the inning started to 30% at this point. But the next batter would provide the single biggest home run by win probability added and by championship win probability added in baseball history. This one isn't as memorable as the Mazeroski homer, but it's arguably the most clutch homer in baseball history. Hal Smith was a part-time catcher for the Pirates, serving as a platoon partner for Smokey Burgess. He had started only 2 games in the series, the 2 started by left-hander Whitey Ford. Burgess had started this game, but had been pinch run for in the 7th. Another quietly big moment in the game in retrospect. Had Burgess not gotten on base to lead off the 7th, he's still in the game in the 8th, and they aren't going to pinch hit for him with Smith against the right-handed hurler Coates. Instead, of course, Smith would hit a 3-run blast to left that would put the Pirates up 9-7 and take their win expectancy from 30% to 93%. But the Yankees defied those odds in the top of the 9th. Having pinch hit for Roy Face, the Pirates chose to go with ace starter Bob Friend in relief. Friend had been the Pirates' best starter in 1960, but had been absolutely pummeled by the Yankees in this series, losing 2 of those blowouts, including the 12-0 loss the previous day, when Friend had given up 5 runs in 2 innings. But the Pirates' bullpen outside of Face was pretty thin, and I guess you figure Friend had only faced 14 batters the previous day. But he picked up where he left off, giving up back-to-back singles to Bobby Richardson and pinch hitter Dale Long. Friend ended the series with a 13.50 ERA, 9 earned runs in 6 innings. Murtaugh would pull him in favor of another starter, Harvey Haddix, a lefty to face Maris, Mantle, and Berra. He'd get Maris, but then give up an RBI single to Mickey Mantle, which scored Richardson and sent Long to third. This raised the Yankees' win expectancy from 16% all the way up to 37%. Berra would then drive in the tying run on a grounder to first, which looks super weird on paper. Grounder to first unassisted. Mantle stays at first? This is a crazy play. Berra hits a hot shot down the line that first baseman Rocky Nelson grabs while standing on the bag. He stands upright, expecting to throw to second to throw out Mantle, but Mickey's standing right there. Mantle jukes and dives into first safely with an amazing slide. This could have ended the game right there. Instead, it sets up one of the most famous home runs of all time in the bottom half of the 9th. Bill Mazeroski leads off against Ralph Terry. So there we go. This decade is before my time, so let me know what key moments or weird moments or whatever that I missed, and let me know how you would rank these series. And please like and subscribe.